Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about Rust and Alec Baldwin and the latest updates. So, two major key pieces of updates to give you today, actually. One, the movie has shut down for an indeterminate amount of time. I want to say I'm going to be surprised if this movie continues, but I think it will. But currently it is wrapped production and it's done. They're doing an investigation, and of course the Santa Fe Police Department is doing the investigation. Secondly, as part of it shutting down, actually, the Santa Fe Police Department have now revealed that charges are not filed at this time, but there's the big thing here, the but. Investigation is ongoing, and basically they're open to filing charges now, whereas before, when things initially started to drop, they hadn't actually said that. They were very clear cut. No charges are filed. There was no files charges at this time, blah, blah, blah. We're ongoing, we're going to look into it. There wasn't any of that. But now, it seems as more and more information has been revealed, it does seem like someone will go down for this. Second update is that the assistant director, David Halls, has actually had some pretty serious complaints lodged against him in the past about his aggressive behaviour. Now, that's not really, it's not directly related to the Alec Baldwin issue and Rust and things like that, but it's a character reference at the end of the day, and it is important when you start to build up a bit of a picture, because this chap is said to be incredibly aggressive, basically, and quite nasty to work with, quite intimidating, and you're not going to question a character like that when they shout cold gun, which is, per the affidavit, what he said. So I thought we'd dive into this. You guys have found my coverage of this to be very concise, to the point, and informative. So thank you so much. And obviously, as and when situations drop with respect to this, I will be covering it for you because you guys have enjoyed the coverage. I don't like saying enjoyed the coverage because, of course, it's quite a horrendous thing to talk about. But you get my point. You found the coverage good, and that's good. So here we go, right? The Rust production team released a letter to the crew of the Alec Baldwin feature tonight, saying that they've made the decision to wrap the set at least until the investigations are complete. At least until that. Like I said, I want to say that it won't happen. Like, they just won't continue the production. It kind of sounds like one of those films that will just die a death now. But I think it probably will keep going. And also, just as a quick FYI, because a lot of people seem to be a bit confused with, why I said in the last video that, Alec Baldwin being executive producer, the buck sort of stops with him. And a lot of people were referencing, well, they're just signed on as money men. This is slightly different because the Rust movie is made actually exclusively because of Alec Baldwin. He is the man putting up the majority of the money. He was one of the writers. He wrote it with the director. And I believe he's actually part of the company Rust Movie LLC. I've tried to do a bit of research on that and tried to figure out exactly who owns that company. But as the facts stand, Alec Baldwin is the reason this movie exists. He's starring in it. He wrote it with the director. And like I said, for all intents and purposes, from what I can find out, he is part of the owner of Rust Movie LLC, and that means ultimately he is responsible for the hiring and firing and also payments and things like that. And he would have been one of those people that is responsible, at least somewhere along the line, for hiring that god-awful 24-year-old armourer who is inexperienced and even expressed their own concerns about working on this production. So just thought I'd clarify that as well, because some people did seem a little bit confused why I said that Alec Baldwin is, quite largely responsible for these kind of situations. He is and he isn't. It's a difficult one to sort of discern between him being responsible for firing the gun, but then also being responsible for the incidents, the chain of custody that failed to the lead up of that, which if he hired people, he is part to blame. But anyway, the note comes as the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office is conducting a search warrant of the Bonanza Creek Ranch in New Mexico after a discharged prop gun by Baldwin took the life of cinematographer Helena Hutchins and injured the film's director Joel Souza in the shoulder on Thursday. On Thursday night, Deadline first reported that the Rust production was halting for an undetermined period of time and conducting their own internal investigation of the fatal incident. Internal investigations mean utterly nothing. It'd be like me saying I'm going to review my channel for any curse words, and then I turn around and go, I've reviewed my channel, I've investigated, it's fine. They're hugely biased. You know, external reviews are always important, and you can take them a little bit more seriously and legitimately. So here was the statement. As such, we are working through when you can pick up your personal items. You should expect an update on the wrap out schedule tomorrow. Continue the letter from the Rust production tonight. That was last night. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Office is holding a press conference on Wednesday to provide details on the incident, which remains an active open investigation. So expect some content on this on Wednesday, because again, I will cover that. And then we get this. So the letter from the Rust production tonight also says, our hearts are with all of you. As we all go through this tragic time and mourn the loss of our colleague and dear friend Helena Hutchins. We are family and we must stand beside each other as families do in difficult times. We remain in close touch with Helena's family and commend the strength they show in the face of unspeakable tragedy. It is beyond an inspiration, continued the note, while also stating that the production is conducting their own internal investigation. The production emphasised in the note that they're making in-person and virtual grief counsellors available to the crew 24/7. The note from production staff basically ended saying that we will be making a donation to the Helena Hutchins Scholarship Fund established by Helena's family, and will be matching any donations by the crew. According to an affidavit on Friday from the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office, it reads that Assistant Director David Halls grabbed one of the 3 prop guns that was set by armourer Hannah Gutierrez. Halls took the gun to Baldwin and yelled "Cold gun." Sousa, in that report prepared by Detective Joel Canner, said that the shooting occurred during a rehearsed scene occurring after lunch and in a church building on the movie ranch. Now, the investigation continues and says, statement anyway, actor Alec Baldwin was sitting on a wooden pew facing south towards the camera and crew. Joel said the rehearsal entailed actor Alec Baldwin cross-drawing his weapon and pointing the revolver towards the camera lens. Not shooting it, apparently, just pointing it. Sousa remembers hearing the words "cold gun" per the affidavit, and according to Sousa's earlier in the report, everyone was getting along on the day of the shoot. There were no altercations that took place to his knowledge. Detective Kano, and here's what starts to get interesting anyway, also spoke with Reed Russell, the cameraman working on the film, who detailed a heavy work day that started late due to 6 members walking out of the film as they were having issues with production involving payment and housing, and also safety, because the gun misfired twice after hours or during part of the production. I mean, that's bad, right? They walked out because of multiple issues, and mainstream media needs to document those things. So Russell also told Kano that the camera crew who walked out on the film wrote a letter to production on disagreements. In the wake of Thursday's tragedy, not only is the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department looking into the tragic incident, but the New Mexico Occupational Health and Safety Bureau, which can impose civil penalties for workplace accidents, even if law enforcement determines no crime occurred. I think a crime definitely occurred. New Mexico's top prosecutor, First Judicial District Attorney Mary Carmack Altwies, a long name, also told Deadline Friday this case is still in its preliminary states of investigation, and that at this time, and here's what's interesting, we do not know if charges will be filed, but we will look into all the facts and evidence of the case with great discretion and have further information at a later time. Whereas before it wasn't like that. The wording was quite different. It was very, very different. Now, it is important to note, by the way, just as an FYI, just out of respect, Helena Hutchins' husband actually doesn't blame Alec Baldwin. He's already given a statement, doesn't blame him. So it's important to kind of throw those things out there when we start to talk about these things. But here we go. Here's the stuff about the First Assistant Director David Halls, and this is an exclusive. So as the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office continues their investigation of the fatal shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on October 21st, which also injured director Joel Sousa on the set of the Alec Baldwin movie Rust, new claims and details are emerging of First Assistant Director David Halls, including a 2019 complaint against him. So much so he's actually been blacklisted from a movie studio, Blumhouse. So David Halls worked on 2 films with Blumhouse Television in 2019, and was not rehired after that time. A Blumhouse TV spokesperson told Deadline today of the first AD 2 years ago. Halls was on the crew of the Pure and Culture Shock episodes of the Blumhouse TV anthology series Into the Dark, which was streamed on Hulu. Blumhouse would not say why Halls was not hired again. However, A complaint entering on what is being characterised as personal behaviour was lodged on Pure against the first AD for a lack of respect for the space of fellow crew members and other co-workers, we have learned. Halls was described as very aggressive and intimidating on set by a source close to the production. Now, again, like I said, in the opening brief, is that this doesn't necessarily pertain directly to Rust, but as a character reference, if an individual gives off this sort of, so much so people had complained, right? Like, if this is the sort of atmosphere that this gentleman gives off, do you really believe people will step in and go, well, hold on a minute, you didn't check that gun, through fear of this individual flipping out? Probably not. So despite him shouting cold gun and probably people may be realising he didn't check it, if this is the type of individual that you're dealing with, the likelihood of anyone shouting and piping up is actually quite slim. So it is important to cover this kind of stuff, because again, it's looking through the chain of custody, responsibility at what failed, which led to this tragedy, because these things are avoidable, and that is an element there. So we get this. There were also claims of safety issues on Pure, but nothing directly connected to Halls. We hear any complaints that were received by the studio regarding safety issues were dealt with promptly, the Blumhouse spokesperson added. When the Rust production was reached by deadline about Hall's previous history and any knowledge they may have had, they provided no comment. Halls himself has not replied to requests for comment from deadline, and it should be noted that no charges have been filed against anyone on the Rust production by police. It hasn't. No, that is true. According to sources in New Mexico, the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office are continuing today to go over the Bonanza Creek Ranch location where Hutchins was fatally wounded and Souza injured and collect evidence. But part of that evidence has already been tampered with because the armourer removed the casing from the gun. Not smart at all. In addition, the New Mexico Occupational Health and Safety Bureau is undergoing an investigation as to what occurred on Rust. So early Sunday, Maggie Goll, who worked on Into the Dark as a day player, as a prop assistant, and on SFX requirements, told NBC News that Halls at first he seemed like an older, affable first assistant director with the usual run of idiosyncrasies, but that facade soon disappeared. Goll went on to say Halls did not maintain a safe working environment, and also interviewed on air, the mast crew member claimed that sets were almost always allowed to become increasingly claustrophobic, no established fire lanes, exits blocked, safety meetings were non-existent. And these things do matter, because if this was 2 years ago, people get away with this stuff more and more. Do those concerns run higher up to do with other safety issues? Yes, probably. That's not that much of a stretch. It's not really, these things happen, don't they? You start to run away with habit, and if his habit is to not be safe and sort of drop the ball on those things, yes, it would encroach into other elements of safety, i.e. gun use perhaps. So in a statement Goll sent Deadline this afternoon, the crew member further added that she reached out to IATSE on Saturday to institute an investigation of Hall's on-set behaviour, specifically in terms of safety. While the armourer is responsible for firearm safety on a set, the first AD is responsible for all safety issues overall. Again, there you go. And so in that context, the detailed affidavit submitted Friday to the New Mexico courts for a subsequent issued search warrant on the Rust tragedy said that just before the shooting of Hutchins and Souza, Baldwin, on the afternoon of October 20, was handed one of a trio of prop guns from a nearby cart by Halls, preparing for a rehearsal scene, and the Rust star and producer was told that the prop was a cold gun that did not have any live rounds in it. It did. Which, they say here, indicating that 3 prop guns were prepped by the onset armourer, who was named as Hannah Gutierrez in the October 22nd filing from Detective Joel Kano. The affidavit said that Halls did not know live rounds were in the prop gun. Among various components of the search warrant, the police are seeking to see if any footage... So there's another article, there's not really any point going over it, but they do actually believe that there's some footage of the shooting. They believe cameras were rolling. Which, oh God, that is terrible. It's absolutely awful. So they're even submitting now for that footage that they can go over it and review it, because that would have been rolling pre, him getting the gun, basically, potentially. So they want all of that footage, which makes sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, we understand that the $7 million production of the now halted for an undetermined period of time Rust was 50% completed at the time of the bloody incident. On Friday, Deadline learned that Rust camera crew packed up their personal gear and walked off the job, citing a wide range of complaints, including lack of payment for 3 weeks, no lodging, and poor on-set gun safety. I mean, it's one of these things where you can just see this, maybe you were never going to see it at the time. These camera crew obviously saw it, right? But in hindsight, you look at this and you go, look, every step of the way there's been a failure, a subsequent negligence, just moving further down the line until you pay the ultimate price, which is someone's life. So yeah, shocking stuff. Shocking stuff. But there you go. There is the big update for you, ladies and gentlemen. I will be doing these every so often when there are bigger updates dropping, and there will, because this investigation will continue. And this stuff is really important because this will shape and change the movie industry to come. There are already petitions to ban live guns on set and just ban their use overall, or at the very least get some more, I guess, restrictions to do with ammunition and things like that. Now I know, because there have been a lot of people that have reached out to me and said, I work with guns, I do this, I work with that, etc., etc. I know there are a lot of people that believe there is a potential political leaning moving in for all of this, and all these kind of things. I like to just deal with the facts when we're talking about this, especially just out of respect for obviously someone losing their life. There are, of course, a lot of conspiracy theories floating around about that as well. I'd be disingenuous not to acknowledge them because, of course, camera crew walked out citing gun safety. A lot of people are putting two and two together and saying, oh, well, they must have done it. I can't imagine they would do something like that if they had already walked out due to gun safety. They're not going to put a live round. I wouldn't believe someone to be that vindictive to put a live round in a gun if they'd already walked out due to safety. It does seem a bit like a, cancelling one another out there. But again, who knows? And yeah, I mean, there you go. There you have it, ladies and gents. Let me know what you think, though. Please do down below in the comment section. If you're new here, do hit subscribe to stay up to date on this and other movie news in the industry and movie reviews. Thank you so much, though, ladies and gentlemen. Follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at MrHReviews, and you can support the channel further via Patreon in the description box and membership link in the description box as well. Thanks so much. Take care.